Hi everyone, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back from all that midweek action. Very entertaining games did we watch in the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, as well as the UEFA Conference League. Very entertaining. Misery for Real Madrid, jubilations for Manchester United as Ruben Amorim recorded his first victory in charge of Manchester United. Liverpool off the charts. Very incredible in their performance as they beat up against Real Madrid by 2-0. Arsenal on Tuesday sweeping Sporting Lisbon off their feet in a 5-1 thumping there in Lisbon. So, very entertaining results did we witness. The drama that we did witness in that goalless draw between Juventus and Aston Villa. Aston Villa having a goal, literally the last kick of the game, cancelled out in that one. Emiliano Martinez pulling off an incredible save on the other side earlier on in the game. Very incredible action. For the misery of Real Madrid, both teams did miss penalties. Mohamed Salah a culprit for the Liverpool side, just as much as Kylian Mbappe on the opposite side. But then goals from Alexis McAllister and Cody Gakpo were just enough to steer Liverpool to victory as Arne Slot does continue with his perfect start to his Liverpool tenure. I think 19 games are played or managed so far, 17 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss to his name. The loss coming against Nottingham Forest, while the draw against Arsenal in that 2-all draw in the Premier League there. Anyways, our focus once again will be on the Premier League, where we do enter match day 13. Plenty of action that will be coming your way. It does kick off with a Friday night of football game when Brighton and Hove Albion entertain Southampton at the Amex Stadium, and then we'll continue on Saturday and all through Sunday. But this time around, we'll be having midweek games come next week, including a very big rivalry game there when Manchester United travel to the Emirates Stadium, I think on Wednesday, with kickoff slated for about 11:15 p.m. for that particular one. But for now, here is the run of fixtures that will be coming your way on match day 13. Like I said, Friday kickoff, there we do have a game at 11 p.m. between Brighton and Southampton, while we'll have no early kickoff on Saturday. All games will start at 6 p.m. sharp, with 4 games played at that hour, and those will be Brentford at home against Leicester. Remember, Leicester did sack their manager in Steve Cooper there, so they are without a manager, but they are very soon approaching the appointment of Ruud van Nistelrooy as their new manager. I understand an agreement has already been reached with all paperwork signed between the two parties. Crystal Palace will be at home against Newcastle. Newcastle coming in this fixture on the back of a 2-0 loss against West Ham. That was on Monday night. While Nottingham Forest will be at home against Ipswich Town. They will be hoping to bounce back following that 3-0 loss to Arsenal over the weekend, last weekend on match day 12. And then Wolverhampton Wanderers, in the aftermath of their 4-1 victory against Fulham, will entertain AFC Bournemouth. So those are the fixtures that will be on your screens at 6 p.m. sharp. And at 8:30 p.m., West Ham United will entertain Arsenal at the London Stadium. Remember, West Ham will be discussing this particular game in detail just in a bit. But on Super Sunday, Chelsea will be at home against Aston Villa. That game does kick off at 4:30 p.m. just as much as the fixture between Manchester United and Everton, that is at Old Trafford, while Tottenham Hotspurs will be at home against Fulham. A London derby is there. And then in the late kickoff, arguably the biggest game of the weekend, when Liverpool, the table leaders, entertain a second-place Manchester City, who are still winless in 6 games across all competitions. There, in midweek, they did suffer another big scare. That's for Man City, conceding a 3-0 lead after 75 minutes to share the spoils with Feyenoord in a 3-all draw in that particular game. So their misery does, continue. But again, we'll review that particular fixture just in a bit. So do me a big favor, if you're new to the channel, kindly consider subscribing, liking, and commenting, or even sharing, so that we can continue to grow. So let's start things off with that fixture between Arsenal up against West Ham in the late kickoff of Saturday. Now, very interesting fixture because this is a particular fixture that offered us a lot of entertainment last season. The two sides did meet at least 3 times across all competitions in the season. West Ham beating Arsenal twice, beating Arsenal by 2-0 at the Emirates Stadium in the Premier League. They did beat Arsenal at the London Stadium by 3 goals to 1 in the Carabao Cup. And then Arsenal went on to whip West Ham, I think by 6 goals to 0 in the reverse fixture of the Premier League at the London Stadium when Arsenal were in that stellar form in the second phase of the season. So it's a London derby. It promises to be a very entertaining fixture. You have two Spanish managers. We all know what's the kind of football that Spanish managers do like to play. They, dominate possession, be dominant on the ball, and all that kind of, expansive play. West Ham in recent times, they've had to adjust a few things here and there, but they do play a very high defensive line. I did watch that in their 3-1 loss, I think, against Chelsea, and they were really punished for that. At the time, I remember this former Arsenal defender in Konstantinos Mavropanos there playing in that centre back, and they just looked shambolic. I remember Thomas Suchek didn't start that game, and was Julian Lopetegui, upon realizing his mistake, had to, bring on Thomas Suchek, who, by the way, was on target on Monday when West Ham were beating up against Newcastle by 2 goals to 0. So my prediction for that particular game was that Newcastle would beat up against West Ham, but like I still concluded that the Premier League is not shy to surprises. It was a surprise result for me particularly. I thought West Ham were really, really good on the day because it was an away game for them, and yet they put on quite a very decent performance. They do come in this particular fixture with not much injury concerns to worry about besides Nicholas Fulcru, who was since gotten injured. I think he did suffer his injury back in August, an ankle injury. They did sign him in the summer for about £25 million there for a 30-year-old German striker, but it's so far really not worked out for them. On the other side, Arsenal do have their injury concerns to worry about. I do understand Gabriel Magalhaes was not sure in Thursday's training session, but Mikel Arteta, in the update he did provide prior to this particular game, he said they were waiting to train on Friday and he wouldn't commit on his availability. So Gabriel Magalhaes is a doubt for this one, but should he be fine, he could probably start the game. Takahiro Tomiyasu is absent for this one, as well as Ben White. So those are the injury concerns that Arsenal do have to contend with. As far as recent form is concerned, for the two sides, Arsenal have only won one game. That is the 3-0 victory against Nottingham Forest last weekend in their last 5 Premier League outings. They recorded 2 losses during that spell, losing to AFC Bournemouth by 2 goals to 0 and losing to Newcastle by 1 goal to 0, while the other were 2 draws, a 2-2 draw against Liverpool and a 1-1 draw against Chelsea. So that is on paper their recent form. West Ham, on the other side, in their last 5 Premier League outings, they've managed 2 wins, beating up against Manchester United by 2 goals to 1, and then beating up against Newcastle by 2 goals to 0, while they did record also 2 losses during that time, losing to Tottenham Hotspurs, I think by 4 goals to 1, and then they did also lose to Nottingham Forest, I think by 3-0 or something thereabout, and also shared the spoils with Everton in a goalless draw. So their recent form has clearly been better than that of Arsenal. But as far as the last 5 meetings between the two sides are concerned, Arsenal have won 3 of the last 5. They've drawn I think once, and they've lost once during that time. But that loss last season was quite crucial in terms of impacting what eventually where the title went at the end of the season. So it's going to be a very entertaining fixture between the two managers. I do expect Mikel Arteta to make some changes or some tweaks in his starting lineup compared to that one that did start the game against Sporting Lisbon. The reason for that is not particularly because players are absent through injury, but because of the very busy schedule that is going to be coming his way, playing at least a game every 3 days in the coming about 6 weeks, because like I did mention in the preamble of this particular episode, uh, they do have a fixture against Manchester United next week on Wednesday, after which I think they will play Fulham, and then in quick succession they will return to the UEFA Champions League. Before you know it, Premier League, Carabao Cup, that quarter-final game against Crystal Palace will be around the corner. So I do expect Mikel Arteta to make some tweaks there. So it could be that in the should Gabriel Magalhaes be absent, of course they do have Jakub Kivior, who can be slotted back into that left-footed side of the centre back, and then Ricardo Carafiori and Julian Timber. I do get the feeling that he may choose to start just one of the two in this particular fixture, but he's also a risk taker, so don't be surprised if it does feature both. But my gut feeling says probably it could be that Zinchenko starts at left back, and then we do have Julian Timber start this particular game. As far as the midfield is concerned, I do think again he may consider the option of starting Jorginho ahead of Thomas Partey. Once again, nothing to do with Partey's form, but just bearing in mind that he does have a very, very big fixture that will be coming at the Emirates Stadium in the subsequent week on Wednesday. So Leandro Trossard came off the bench to score in that game against Sporting Lisbon. So, and then last weekend you had Ethan Nwaneri come off the bench to score. So it begs the question where he could choose to give one of those two a chance to start this particular game. Mikel Moreno didn't start that game against Nottingham Forest. So clearly there is a room for tweaking that. My prediction is that Arsenal will go ahead and win this particular fixture by 3-1. That's my humble prediction. Yes, it's an away game, but it's a London derby. I do think that Arsenal have been really dominant in recent times as far as London derbies are concerned. Never mind that they did lose to West Ham twice last season, but this time around, I do think they do know what this particular game means, because they get to play on Saturday and wait to watch Manchester City play up against Liverpool on Super Sunday, knowing very much so that at least one of those teams will drop some points. If the two parties share the spoils, that means the two sides both drop 2 points. If one team beats the other, it means one has conceded 3 points, and that gives Arsenal some bit of leverage as far as their title chase is concerned. Mikel Arteta was being asked who he would prefer between Man City and Liverpool to win that game on Sunday, and he did say he would really prefer if Arsenal win their game on Saturday, and then because they literally have no control over what will happen on Super Sunday. So that's my expectation for that particular fixture. Sorry, that bit dragged on, but allow me jump to the other fixtures, especially on Super Sunday, where Chelsea entertain Aston Villa, an Aston Villa side that has not won a game in the last 7, outings in all competitions, drawing 3 and losing, I think, at least 4, including a 4-1 loss to Tottenham Hotspurs, a 2-0 loss to Liverpool during that spell, a goalless draw there with Juventus in the UEFA Champions League, a 1-0 loss to Club Brugge in the UEFA Champions League. So their recent form has not been really, really nice. So this clearly gives Chelsea the advantage, who I think have had things going for them despite a couple of losses that they've suffered in their last few games, including that 2-1 loss to Liverpool. But they've managed 2 draws, I think, against Manchester United, and then another draw against Arsenal. They did beat up against Leicester City last weekend by 2-1. They did beat up against West Ham by 3-1. So clearly, their last 5 Premier League outings have not been that bad. 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. So clearly, things are looking pretty for them. Aston Villa, on the other side, like I said, they will be desperate to regain their form or to return back to winning ways. Is this the game that they get to do it? I certainly do not think so. My gut feeling says if they had to pull off a decent result, they could achieve a draw in this particular one. But Chelsea have all the advantage to their side coming into this particular fixture. As far as their head-to-head is concerned, in the last 5 meetings between Chelsea and Aston Villa, both sides have 2 wins to their name and 1 draw therein. But as far as Premier League form is concerned, for Aston Villa, they do have 2 losses to their name, 2 draws, and just 1 victory in their last 5 fixtures. The last one, a game when they beat up against Fulham, there I do think, and then of course, like I did mention, there they've recorded losses to Liverpool as well as Tottenham Hotspurs in that time. So again, Chelsea do not have so much going wrong for them. They're literally, going about their business with very little focus on them, because in recent time the focus has been on Arsenal's bad form, Manchester City's awful recent spell that still does continue, and then Liverpool's magnificence there at the top of the Premier League charts, and then Tottenham's on and offs, as well as the coming in of Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. So that's where the dominant press has been. So in a way, Chelsea have not been really discussed that much, and yet they are making things right. They're just right about that in the mix of the Premier League title chess, and they could as well go for it because they do have the player power to go for it. Will it really happen? Again, we are wait to see, but we do give them the benefit of doubt because there's a lot that Enzo Maresca is getting right at that side of London at Stamford Bridge. So my prediction is a 2-2 draw could suffice, but again, there's that feeling that tilts really hugely on the side of Chelsea. And then Manchester United, after their 3-2 victory over Bordeaux Clermont, there Alejandro Garnacho on target, as well as Rasmus Højlund, I think with the burst in that particular fixture. I did notice with concern that yes, United tried so much to play with that high defensive line, similar to what West Ham deployed against Chelsea, and were punished for it. So yesterday, United were punished for that high defensive line. Never mind that they did eventually win this particular game, because they did lead the game through Alejandro Garnacho, but then soon enough they did concede an equalizer and then went a goal down, but were able to recover just minutes before halftime, thanks to Rasmus Højlund. As new manager Ruben Amorim recorded his first victory as Manchester United manager, but Manchester United also recording their second consecutive victory in the UEFA Europa League. The previous victory coming up against PAOK Salonika when Ruud van Nistelrooy was still in interim charge there, a 2-0 victory for the Red Devils. So they're up against an Everton side. Everton is one of those sort of unknown quantities in a way, why you can never decide when they are going to be good. But this is a fixture that Manchester United do know how to win pretty well. Last season, they went to Goodison Park and beat up against Everton by 3-0, if I'm not mistaken. Alejandro Garnacho scoring that, bicycle kick that is now in the nominations of the Puskas Award there for best goal of the calendar year, alongside our very own Omedi there, the goal that he did score for Chitara FC in their, fixture against KCC there in the Uganda Premier League. So I think, if my memory serves me right, Anthony Martial could have been on target for that particular fixture, and either Bruno Fernandes or Marcus Rashford. But anyways, we are starting to enjoy Manchester United, and that's according to the words of the former striker in Michael Owen. He does say that he does see what Manchester United are trying to play. They're being intentional. Everything suddenly looks pretty to watch. There's still a lot to be done, in my opinion, but I do give them a chance to go ahead and beat up against Everton by 2-1 this weekend. So that's my prediction there. Fulham Spurs, I don't know. Spurs did share the spoils with AS Roma last night. That is in the UEFA Europa League. So you never really know what kind of Spurs is going to show up, but I do know they've conceded their number one goalkeeper to injury. That's Guillermo Vicario. So it will be Fraser Foster in goal. You're talking about a Fulham side that was just walloped by 4 goals to 1 by Wolverhampton Wanderers. Yep, that's the Fulham we're talking about. But Fulham are equally decent side on any day. So that feeling says a draw could suffice in that one. And then the biggest game of the weekend will come at 7 p.m. East African time when Liverpool host Manchester City. For those of you that have any hopes that Manchester City would go ahead and beat up against Liverpool at Anfield, here is a small fact that you may want to reflect on. As far as I can remember, Pep Guardiola has won just twice at Anfield. Once in the Premier League, and I think the other game was either in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, one of those fixtures. So clearly, Liverpool, and then I think Liverpool have beaten Man City about 4 times, and then they've been 3 draws at Anfield during Pep Guardiola's Premier League spell. So clearly, the odds are not in Manchester City's favor in any way, regardless of them being the 4 consecutive time reigning champions of the Premier League. Last season, they did treat us to 1-1 draws in both fixtures. I do hope that the results could be different this time around rather than just, draws. I do understand that Liverpool will give Manchester City the respect they deserve because, again, Liverpool is that side that they will play this game, be pretty dominant, then play the next game and they're not dominant, but still get a result. They're that kind of team. So they were dominant against Real Madrid, but they could come against Man City and they are not dominant. But then they just choose their moments, bounce, and then, they get the result. They were not dominant against Chelsea, but they still managed to beat Chelsea by 2 goals to 1. They were not dominant against Arsenal, but they managed to get, a point out of that game, scoring 2 goals, in that particular fixture. So they do know how to choose their moments really well. They're facing a Manchester City side that is desperate, really, really desperate to turn their tide around after a winless run of 6 games, during which they have lost 3 consecutive Premier League games. They have lost a UEFA Champions League game. They've lost the fixture in the Carabao Cup that was against Tottenham Hotspur and shared the spoils against Feyenoord in the UEFA Champions League. So clearly, a Man City, with all their troubles, in the absence of Rodri, in the lack of fitness for Kevin De Bruyne, the lack of performance for Ilkay Gundogan, the absence of Mateo Kovacic, Matthias Nunes, the absence of Jeremy Doku, the lack of fitness for Kyle Walker. There, you get the feeling that sooner or later they're going to have to lick their wounds and then try and grind out a result. Can they do that up against Liverpool? It's a huge ask, given the kind of form that Liverpool are in, that good factor that they do have about them, the confidence that comes with winning in all fashion. When you've been on such a very decent run, you're high on confidence, you're intentional on the way you do things, you're not timid, you're very quick in taking action. Mo Salah, yes, he did miss a penalty in that particular game, but let's not forget what he did over the weekend, scoring a brace as they came from a goal 2-1 down to beat up against Southampton in a 3-2 victory. Yes, that's another fixture for me that I do think that Liverpool did not have a very convincing performance, and yet they still managed to get all 3 points out of that fixture. So, as far as recent form is concerned, I do not think that it's even up to comparison for the two sides. I mean, Liverpool have 4 wins out of the last 5 Premier League meetings. The other being a draw against Arsenal, 2-2 draw in that run of fixtures. Then on the side of Man City, they have 2 wins in the last 5, but their very last 3 games are all losses, losing to Brighton, losing to AFC Bournemouth, and losing to Tottenham Hotspur last weekend by the Hollybury by 4 goals to 0. That means they've conceded a whopping 7 goals in the last 2 fixtures, 3 against Feyenoord and 4 against Tottenham. So clearly, things are not on in Man City's favor. It is not to say that I'm writing them off, because if there is any manager that you could call upon to turn up this tide, it is Pep Guardiola, who has, by the way, just renewed his stay with Man City, putting pen to paper to a new contract that will see him at the Etihad Stadium until June 2027. So clearly, he is the man that you can rely on. I just do not think that Man City do have enough player power in terms of players that are fit, availably fit, for them to compete favorably against this Liverpool side. You look at that midfielder and you wonder, Ilkay Gundogan is underperforming. Matthias Nunes is yet to show up for the show. I just don't know why Phil Foden is nowhere in the discussion. Player of the season last year, literally. I mean, again, the English media, very, very good at protecting their own. There is a way we've not really not discussed Phil Foden's form this season. I mean, he's not even had it. He's not even thought of having it. Whereas if it were another player, I do get the feeling that he will be, getting sort of a beating in terms of media discussions and all that kind of thing. But it is Phil Foden. So he's yet to show up. Brought Erling Haaland, did score a brace against Feyenoord, but then again, in some games, he's been really almost absent. So, Rico Lewis, you get the feeling that they're asking just a little too much from him. Of course, John Stones, Manela Kanji are all available in that defense. And then Ederson Moraes, you can rely on him in goal just as much as Liverpool have relied on Alisson. Although in recent times it has been Kelleher because of, Alisson's injury, and he did save a penalty against Kylian Mbappe. Last weekend he saved a penalty against Armstrong, although conceded the rebound in which Southampton scored there in the resultant tap in. So he's a very decent goalkeeper. They're not really concerned about Alisson being absent. However, the concern for Liverpool is that Ibrahim Konate did suffer an injury in that UEFA Champions League game. So if it is a bad injury that may see him out of this fixture and even in the subsequent fixtures going forward, it could be a big concern for Arne Slot, who has really relied on him, and he has been reliable himself, playing alongside Virgil van Dijk in that defense. But then they do have a Gomez in there that can be called upon to play alongside Virgil van Dijk. So that's the kind of side you're looking at. That Liverpool midfield, regardless of who they bring in when they took things a bit. Dominic Szoboszlai, McAllister, alongside Van Gravenberch and Curtis Jones, they've really been incredible in that midfield. Wataru Endo sometimes getting the nod in to come and play. Darwin Núñez, very sharp player. He just doesn't have that finishing prowess that maybe Broad Erling Haaland has, but he's quite a threat, especially in the air, just as much as Virgil van Dijk is when it comes to set pieces. So we do expect a very entertaining fixture for us on our hands come Super Sunday. As far as the last 5 meetings between the two sides are concerned, the two sides have shared the spoils at least 3 times and then won the fixture once respectively. Liverpool beating Man City by 1-0. They are in between, while Man City, I think, did beat Liverpool by 4-1. They are in one of those fixtures. But do let me know what your predictions are. My gut feeling says that Man City are going to be given a beating of their lives as far as this fixture is concerned. But what it means that should Man City lose to Liverpool, it will leave them 11 points behind Liverpool at the table. Would that mean that the title pursuit for Man City would be over? Mentally, it could mean that, although mathematically, it will still be possible. So, yeah, I got this feeling that says that Liverpool would win this fixture by 3-1. Do let me know your thoughts, your predictions, if you differ from that. That's all we managed today as far as previews are concerned. Do share your thoughts with me down in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Stay blessed. Have a wonderful weekend.